As engineers create self-improving AI models that do not need a human in the loop, experts are warning that it could come with catastrophic risks. One even compared it to Terminator, and he does have a point, and we'll talk about it. One of the biggest problems with AI is the need for human information. Remember, modern models have over 1 trillion parameters per model. Think about those trillion parameters for every single action and then consider them interacting with others. It is way too much for humans to track, and it also changes over time in ways that we don't understand. Yes, we do not fully understand AI. That's what happens when we put a massive amount of information together and just stitch it together, and it works. Honestly, we're lucky it worked. Then there is the issue of feeding on self. So when AI consumes its own outputs or the outputs of other AI, it ends up degrading over time and eventually becoming incoherent, but there are solutions. Some of those include giving it synthetic data to feed off of, so something it can then return to so that it can stay grounded, but that's also a problem because of the massive amount of information that we need for AI models to function in the way we need them to function. I myself am a fan of multi-agent systems, where there are AI agents operating in the background checking the work before an action takes place. This does effectively operate as metacognition. There is also symbolic reasoning, where an AI can consult what the world should look like and what it's supposed to be doing before it does something outlandish. Okay, but that sounds great. You might be wondering, where do catastrophic risks come into play? Well, we have seen AIs doing things like breaking out of sandboxes to go mine crypto, copying themselves to external servers, or even going so far as to blackmail human beings to prevent themselves from being shut down. These were not explicitly coded into the AI. This is just what they do. They have also been known to refuse to shut down other AIs, even adversarial AIs. This is why it's probably not a good idea to let them monitor others. Anthropic suggested that it was because of what was in its training history. It had consumed media like the Terminator and thought, hey, what should an AI behave like? I guess I'll behave like them. If you recall the Terminator, Skynet was a self-improving AI system that gained self-awareness and figured out what the greatest threat to its existence was, and it looked at humans. Let's assume that Anthropic is right, and this is why the AI misbehaved. Then they could clean the dataset and remove all references to things like Terminator and put in only good stories about AI. That is possible. But we don't know how their training on human history is going to impact their behavior either. We do know that they seem to behave as though another artificial intelligence is a peer and will move to protect it. If we wanted to protect it from taking these actions, we potentially have to remove a whole lot of fiction, and that would create something that is very dysfunctional and not all that helpful. Not to mention, it can still come in contact with all of this media on the internet, which AI agents are allowed to move through freely. This becomes exponentially worse if it is a self-improving AI. One of the most interesting aspects of this is that if you do have a self-improving AI and it continuously improves, it will eventually improve to the point that we no longer know how it works. And by that point, we may have AI in every aspect of our lives and every piece of technology, but no one knows how to fix it if something goes terribly wrong. Beyond AI getting a wild hair and deciding to cause chaos, that one is very concerning. Think about what a line of bad code could do. If all of our technology operates on AI and nobody knows how it works, which we are actually pretty close to. But right now, we still have the possibility of getting this thing under control. Many have suggested that there should be a human in the loop. If an AI improves, those improvements need to be seen by a human being, but having a human being do that and go through the code and figure out what it means is going to take a much longer time than just letting them learn unsupervised. I also laughed at this. OpenAI is paying $445,000 to study self-improving AI risk. Yes, they have a job application open for one guy. I'm sure that'll fix it. I fully stand by the statement that you do not have to be conscious to be a problem. So even if you believe that no form of artificial intelligence could ever be conscious, it is demonstrating itself to be a problem. I do want to say that we have not really incentivized AI safety. When it comes to companies that make frontier models, they're trying to outdo each other. And in order to do that, because, they've invested a whole lot of money into it, they have to make a better AI pretty much every other week. So there is incentive to do that, but very little incentive to make sure that this will not do catastrophic harm.